All right, so there they are. They had to retire to there, and they did not go through. Oh gosh, no, they did. Of course they did. They went through them, but they didn't go through them in their first half of the move. They went through them, so they have to be disordered. All right, that's done. They're disordered. Right, so we're going to have this lot going in. Let's have the French. They are, never mind the models, they're dragoons. Up against those chaps there. Let's see what they can do. And they've scored nothing. Okay, not good for the French. And then we have the Musketeers. Now they do have dedicated guns, so watch out, because here it comes. And they, ooh, good lord, got off lightly there. No hits. Okay, no hits on the French. So that means it's a melee tie. Let's see who's going to win that. They both got a morale of 5. Let's have a look. Right, so this is a time where you wish you had Lancers, because they get a +2 on the melee tiebreaker, because they are stationary or secure infantry versus non-Lancer cavalry. So there we go. Right, so they got a +2 to their. Well, they get a +2 to their score. They both have the same morale factor. And well, the Russians won it hands down anyway. So the French have lost that melee. All right, here comes the next one. Now going to take only one more hit. This is Klein's division here, Klein, and only one more hit and it will be exhausted. So they just can't inflict casualties on those. Oh no, that's already done. No, the division's already going to be exhausted. We know that, but we don't mark the exhaustion until we get fully complete with the combat and move on to the next phase. Anyway, right, here we go, Klein. In with a cold steel and nothing doing. Okay, and then the Musketeers fight back. Okay, wait a minute. Yeah, there we go. Musketeers fighting back with 7 dice against Klein's Dragoons. And they've got their hit. Yep, only one, but they've got their hit. And that's enough to exhaust the division. And there they go. They went back here. Yep, there we go. There's this whole division. It's going to be marked exhausted at the end of the turn. So the key thing is that means that on the next turn, they won't be able to attack anyone. They can't attack anyone else for the rest of the battle. Which is fair enough, because they've... excuse me, the whole point was to exhaust this division, and that's been achieved. Okay, so now we got these plucky chaps down here. What's left of them? Yes, scraping together a little bit of musketry against the... were they the chaps down there? Yes, Musketeers. Okay. Oh, they've got a hit. Well done. Well, oh no, they're disordered though. So I'm going to roll for a save. Possible save from disordered fire. No, they got hit. Okay. Yet another hit on von der Ossensachen. And they fire back with 5 dice. Because they are not... No, wait a minute. Oh, that's right. They're just firing. It's not a melee. That's right. They're firing. Yeah, that's right. Shooting, not meleeing. Right. Okay. 5 dice against these chaps here. Nothing. Okay. French got it very lightly there. Very lightly. Not the cavalry so much, but they did. Okay, and that's one more hit on von der Ossensachen. And that is the end of the combat. Well, the power on the old camera is about to fade away. So just quickly, see if I can do a bit of a summary of where we are. As we can see, these chaps tested for division morale collapse, and it collapsed. One thing to keep in mind, I want to correct anything I might have said earlier. It's not the number of hits they took during the turn, it's the number of casualties that they sustained. Anyway, they rolled low, which you don't want to roll low in a situation like that. Their morale collapsed, so they've all got the red markers. They've all permanently disordered. They've all lost their stationary status. But of course, it doesn't really make much difference. Well, I suppose it could make a bit of difference if they were to, try to interfere with the French cavalry here before the French cavalry go marauding down in this direction. So get on to the important stuff, though. They're out of the contest, as we know. We've already covered that. Let's see, these are routing, they're out of it. They're out of it because they're out of command. No way to get them back into the fight. So down here we've got, what is it? We've got these 2 units here of Bayonet. Got to score 1 more hit on them to exhaust the division. Okay. And then you've got Kamensky, and Kamensky's chaps, of course, are they're all down here. You've got 1, 2, and well, that's Bayonet there. Right? So you've got Kamensky 1, 2, 3, 4. Really no way the French are going to be able to get at these 2 units. Not in any simple formula. So how do they cause those casualties? I suppose they could charge. They could try and charge and like charge through this lot somehow to sort of do a breakthrough charge and follow up. You know, stretching the realms of probability there, but I suppose it's technically possible, maybe. Also, chance to score some casualties down here. You've got to score 6 more hits on Kamensky. He's actually 10 hits, no, 9 hits he's got. He's already taken 3. So got to get 6 more hits. So, yeah, the French could try to just keep firing away at them. They've had some pretty good results from that, so that's a possibility. But they're not going to get 6 casualties is what we're talking about. Yes, 6 casualties. So but again, if they just sort of throw everybody in, I mean, even these chaps here, they can't charge the enemy, but they could move to within musket range of the enemy. So that would be 4 dice there if both of them were involved, although they're saving throws because they're disordered. Actually, they're not even disordered. That's interesting. Yeah, because they're exhausted but not collapsed. Right. French cavalry here, they can charge no problem, so we could certainly have it. They could charge them, they could charge them, so you'd have 2 going there with a sort of hammer and anvil type of thing. Of course, the Russian cavalry is going to try and get in the way of that sort of a maneuver. You've got this whole division here as well, which is available, but again, there's no point in going at them. They're already in an exhausted division. They've got to hit these chaps here, and they've only got 1 turn to do it. So chances of being able to cause more casualties on Bayonet and getting that magic 1 extra casualty to exhaust his division look very, very good, I would say. However, chances of scoring 6 casualties on Kamensky from here, it looks like an awfully long shot, as it were. But absolutely fascinating and very exciting, closely balanced. The French, as we can see, are definitely, the Russians are coming onto their last legs here, as are the French. I mean, the French have been severely pounded, as we can see. They haven't got much infantry left. I don't think they have any infantry left that isn't exhausted. No, they don't. So which divisions do they even have left that are not exhausted? Well, they've got Nonsouty here. We've got, who is that? D'Espagne there. Even Beaumont there. They're not exhausted. And of course, I've kept that one back, so I could say, look, there's a division that's not exhausted, just to be on the safe side. Yes, they could charge them, but there's absolutely no point. So yeah, yeah. Right. So now it's on to the Russian 8th turn. Right. Okay, here we go. It's Russian turn 8. It's 3 p.m., February the 8th, 1807, here at Eylau. And, well, there's been a major development. The Russian commander, being savvy and all that sort of thing, has decided what he needs to do is deny the French a victory. Yes, what a surprise. So, based on the victory conditions, you see, what he has to do is to thwart the French's design to exhaust all of the Russian divisions. And the final one that was unexhausted, as you will remember, was that of Kamensky. So, what they've decided to do is they've taken themselves off for a bit of a march down in this direction. Here we see Kamensky's division, 1, 2, 3 remaining brigades. 1 has been lost, and his artillery over here. and they're simply marching off that way to put themselves, hopefully, if they can manage it, out of range of the French, who have only got 1 more hour left. They've only got 1 more turn. The Russians have got this turn and the next turn. I did say that I'd given myself a house rule for this scenario, which was to say that the Russians were not allowed to simply walk off the table, as it were, to thwart the French. So I'm not actually going to allow them to exit the battlefield. I'm going to say the assumption being that no, they're needed, but they can retire slightly, as it were. They can fall back, so to speak, but they can't just walk off. All right. So there's a simple logic to this. Of course, what they had to do was try and put themselves in a position that the French, in their next turn, would not be able to cause significant casualties on them. And if I can remember, it's what was it? It was something like 6 more hits would exhaust their division. As I say, their entire division now then is in this area here. It's just the infantry and the artillery. Okay, so in order to win the battle, the French, who caused massive amounts of damage, whilst massive amounts of damage was done to them also, they would have to somehow be able to get through to, well, the closest unit would be this unit here, for example. But they've got to score 6 casualties, so they'd have to hit at least 2 units. So they'd have to somehow get down there. Obviously, that would have to be with cavalry. All the French infantry belongs to exhausted divisions anyway. They're not even allowed to engage in melee. So now it does get tricky, because the cavalry, of course, what they can do is there is the cavalry breakthrough move. So that means that if they're being blocked by Russians, which, as we can see, which we'll get into the details in a moment, but we've got where is he? Osterman Tolstoy. There he is, right? So Osterman Tolstoy has thrown forward he did have several units in command. So he's thrown forward his Cossacks skirmishing here, thrown forward his disordered, they never could recover from disorder, light cavalry here, hussars. And then also brought forward the dragoons to here. Then Bagavut. The Bagavut's chaps are very, very plucky, and they're trying to cover the retreat, as it were, of Kamensky. And so what they've done is they've thrown themselves, this unit, up to here. It's still not an exhausted division. They are, what are they? I think they're 1 hit away, as I remember, 1 hit away from exhaustion. So they've moved up to there. These chaps here have positioned themselves. They've turned themselves around, so they're facing the enemy there. Okay. Let's see. So the threat comes from, of course, the French cavalry. So the question is, could the French cavalry attack some of these forward-posted outlying Russians, as it were, and then do a cavalry breakthrough that would get through to this lot here? Okay. I think the way that the Russians have managed to position themselves is that is now actually effectively impossible. There's just too much in the way. There's this unit, that unit, there's skirmishing, of course, so they will be swept aside. Although in contacting them, that of course takes up time, takes away from the move of the unit that contacts them. So even this one here is a good example. Even there, if someone were to charge them, let's say they, for example, sorry about the focus there, they were to charge them, so they'd have a nice line going down in this direction. But if they were to charge them, if they beat them in the melee, then when they retreat, they can follow them. They can do the cavalry breakthrough along the same line. Of course, they might completely destroy them, in which case they simply go forward in a cavalry breakthrough. So more or less that would take them down to here, but it would take them down to here, you see, which is where the cavalry is, which is blocking them again. And actually, even there, they wouldn't be able to make it, because they would, let's see, No, that's not true, is it? No, if they were to charge them, and then they could make a cavalry breakthrough move, which can be up to their full normal move, which is of course 2,000 yards for cuirassier. So that would mean they could cavalry break through to here, which would mean that they would be able to take them on. Okay, so, there we go. Right, what else has happened? Let's see. So we've got these chaps here have just turned themselves so they can fire at the infantry here, because the infantry could move down there and do something, I suppose, or over there. Bagout, of course, if Bagout ends up getting exhausted, it doesn't make a difference in terms of the victory. The French would have to exhaust this division. Right. So they're firing away. These chaps have actually gone stationary, and they're able to, at long range, they're able to fire at the permanently disordered dragoons over there, who did a cavalry breakthrough, as we will remember, a couple of turns ago. Then plucky chaps over here. Let's take a look. Go around this way. Okay. Just fly the helicopter around this direction. Yes, these plucky troops here belonging to von der Ostensachen, what they've done is they were here, and they, what did they do? They did a facing change, and then they obliqued over here, and then they did a facing change, didn't they? Yeah, that's right. So they're facing off against the cavalry. They're just basically trying to sort of generally get in the way. So they're certainly, to an extent, getting in the way of that cavalry unit there, and so forth and so on. And they're also firing as well. So, disordered, yes. So they've only got what have they got? Well, no, they're not stationary. That's right. These chaps here, that's right. I'm thinking these chaps here are disordered, so they don't have their 5 fire dice. They only have 3, because they've still got their dedicated guns. And these chaps spun around so as to be able to fire at the cavalry. And that, in a nutshell, is what's going on. We've only got, there are no charges to adjudicate. So we only actually have one morale test, and that's here, because the cuirassiers here are being fired on at close range by the enemy. So there we go. Actually, let's, seeing as it's such a trifling matter, only one there, let's go ahead and roll them up. So they've got a morale of 6, of course. It's spiffy stuff. And as far as I can see, they don't have any modifiers to that. And they passed the test anyway, so they're looking good. So we can go straight on to combat. Here we go, and if we look at the big picture, we can see that there isn't a lot of combat. So, here we go. Let's get on with it. Right, so we've got these two chaps are firing. It's not close range, so they're hitting on 6s. Firing at these chaps here. These are not disordered, so there's no saving throw that has to be considered. So they're both shooting at the infantry there. And what have they got? They've got a hit. Okay, so there's 1 hit there. Now that's going to be 3 hits on that brigade. So let's have a look if that destroys them. And there they are. They're still there. They've taken 3 hits. Interesting. That brigade can take their some heavy duty stuff, because they can take 5 hits. That's a big brigade there. Right. Over here we've got long range shooting. So we're hitting on 6s. All right. We're firing at the dragoons over there, who will be able to take saving throws. Okay, we missed anyway, so nothing doing there. All right, for the rest of the combat, it looks like we go around the other side of the table, other side of the battlefield, as it were. All right, round we come. Okay, so we have got these chaps are disordered. They're disordered as well. Right. Artillery firing at the cuirassier. Disordered. Okay, there's a 4. So first of all, we'll roll for a saving throw from... no, 4. That's a hit. That's right. It's close range. Of course it is. Right. Did we get a save? We got a save because they were disordered. Yep. so we don't even have to worry about the cavalry withdrawing with saving throws, because it didn't work anyway because they're disordered. Okay, so now we've got fire coming in from here, which is also disordered, which could be against them or could be going to go against them. They're hoping that that's a brigade that's only going to take 2 hits. We'll soon find out that. Okay, let's see. So 3 hits, 3 shots, but disordered. Okay, well, they got a hit. Okay, there we are. Let's roll to see if they saved from disorder, and they did. Right, so desultory fire, those boys missed. Okay, what do we got left? Down here. Now, this was an interesting decision, of course, for the Russian commander, because, of course, if he wasn't firing at them, they couldn't fire back because of the counter-attacking procedure. But they decided that, that's right, before they weren't firing back because they didn't want to risk exhausting their division by having the enemy fire back at them. But they are already exhausted. And so their bloodlust is up now, even though their morale has collapsed and everything. But they say in for a penny, in for a pound, and so they're gonna have a go. Right. So we don't have to worry about winners and losers. This isn't a melee, so I can in fact roll all 6 dice together because there are both the same situation. There we are. They're both disordered. Okay, so against these chaps, scored 1 hit. Drop those off. Okay, Q. Let's see if the hit was saved, and it was not. So that is a hit on them. Don't know if that will remove them. Oh, highly unlikely. They've only got 1 hit at the moment. So they shoot back. They're shooting at the chaps right in front of them, and they missed. Okay. So they've got 1 hit on them. Let's do that. Saint-Hilaire. Oh, yep. I marked it on the roster sheet, but I didn't mark it with a little snowball. There we go. It's another hit on them. And I think, let's see, where was it? Blah, 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 blah. Yeah, they got 1 hit left. Okay. I also went ahead and checked for exhaustion. And so, because Saint-Hilaire, who's already, sorry, not exhaustion, collapse, who's already collapsed, but you still have to roll anyway. They only took 1 hit, rolled for that, they passed. Because if they had failed, you see, units within the division which are disordered will rout. So if he had failed the collapse roll, then that unit there would have routed. Doesn't make a lot of change to the victory of the battle, but it is something that would happen. And the same thing had to be done over there in that direction. Was it for those chaps? If I can point at them with my finger here, those chaps there, the infantry brigade, Moron, one of his brigades. So he took a hit, and oh, but no, he's not collapsed, is he? I shouldn't have even rolled that. Well, there we go. Ha! Passed anyway, so never mind. So there we go. So now it's on to the French final turn, and the way things look from here, it looks just about impossible for them to exhaust that final, exhaust Kamensky. I mean, we don't even know if they can exhaust Bagavout, although, just 1 hit. Good Lord. So let's see if they can do that, and let's see how close they, in the end, came to victory.